this lecture, I go down to the lunchroom and I eat the orange hamburger. And it makes me sick. And I come back to you and say, hey, don't eat the orange hamburger. It's going to make you sick. Well, that way, you've learned something without ever having to get sick. And that's good. And in fact, most of the things that you know, most of the facts in your mind, are things that you learned from other people. So language is a way of allowing one person to learn from many different people. But you know, we've also learned to turn that concept around, to use language as a way of allowing one person to teach many people. This is the concept of mass media. And in fact, by mass media, I don't mean just radio and television. Mass media goes back 100,000 years to a circle of people sitting around a fire with one guy telling a story. This lecture is mass media. Look, right now, I'm teaching 200 people. Think about how tremendously efficient that is. That's really an enormous improvement in the efficiency of a single conversation. However, we've learned over the years that there's a responsibility associated with this. That is, if I'm going to give you guys this lecture, if I'm going to take up all of your time, it is incumbent upon me to do a good job. I better prepare this lecture carefully. I better outline it, plan it, and rehearse it over and over until I have a lecture that is worthy of all of your time. So there's a real responsibility here. In fact, over the years, we have also learned that if you run with that responsibility, if you do a really good job, why, lots and lots of people will want to hear about your communication. For example, suppose this lecture was a really fantastic lecture. Suppose I prepared it and I had special effects and spaceships shooting across behind me and all sorts of fabulous things going on. And this lecture was just so great, so wonderful, that after it was over, you all went running out into the hall saying, hallelujah, Brother Crawford has shown you the way. And everybody wanted to buy Chris Crawford lecture videotape. And everybody wanted to buy Chris Crawford lecture audio tape. Chris Crawford lecture t-shirts, coffee mugs, keychains. Yes! But, I'm not that good. I think we'll have to scratch the t-shirts and coffee mugs. But the principle remains the same. And in fact, this is the genesis of art. Because art really is just a way of communicating ideas. For example, consider Michelangelo's statue, the Pietà, showing Mother Mary holding the crucified body of her son. This tells you something about the nature of motherly love. And Michelangelo invested so much talent into that statue, so much energy and so much time, that the result conveys to you, the audience, its message of motherly love with tremendous power. It is compelling, it is clear, it is powerful. And because of these things, it is so great that we call it beautiful. That is the spring, that is how art comes about. However, we have also learned over the years that the responsibility works both ways. This is a two-way street. I mean, you don't get off scot-free. You have a responsibility too. Your responsibility is not to mess up my beautiful speech. I mean, if I went to all the trouble to prepare this damn thing, you better not disrupt it. So don't get up and move around. Don't rustle your papers and drop them on the floor. Don't stomp your feet. Don't crack your knuckles. Don't belch. Don't fart. Don't do nothing. Just sit there quietly, passively. Wait. Didn't I just say, I think it was about here somewhere. Didn't I say something about the human mind being an active agent, not a passive receptacle? What gives? I mean, here we have the march of civilization, every day, in every way, getting better and better. And the grand culmination of this glorious march is the creation of art, which puts you, the audience, in a passive role, which we have just shown to be fundamentally in conflict with the basic structure of the human mind. What gives? Well, maybe I can illuminate the nature of this contradiction a little with an imaginary alternative. Suppose I were to instead of giving this lecture, Suppose I were to take each of you one at a time. We start with you, David. And you and I would go off to a little room together, and we would have a conversation instead of a lecture, an interactive conversation instead of an expository lecture. And so I would start saying something about my dream, and then you might ask a question. And then I'd answer your question, and then you might have another question, I'd answer that, and then you'd start to argue with me, and I'd argue back, and we'd go back and forth, and we would interact. And that would be a lot different, wouldn't it? Because you'd be a lot more active. You wouldn't be sitting there on your fat butt. You'd be doing something. The juices would be flowing. The wheels would be turning. Your mind would be going a mile a minute. You'd learn a lot more, wouldn't you? Yeah. And from my point of view, I would convey my message a lot more effectively, wouldn't I? But the problem is, there are 200 of you, and there's only one of me. And if I were to use that method, why, I'd be here forever. So the lecture method is a lot more efficient than the conversation method. And that is the basic problem we face. The interactive conversation is effective, but the expository lecture is efficient. That's the trade-off we make. And over the centuries, we humans have learned that the gains in efficiency outweigh the losses in effectiveness. And therefore, we choose expository methods. But the sacrifice remains real. We haven't ever solved that problem. It's been with us since the beginning of history. Every single artist has faced it. Every communicator, every teacher, every novelist, every sculptor, every singer, every musician, every painter, every novelist, every single artist through all of human history has been forced to sacrifice effectiveness for efficiency until now. Because now we have a technology that changes everything. With the computer, I can take my ideas that I want to communicate. I can express them in the form of an algorithm. And then I can take that algorithm and I can write it up as program code. And then I can put that program code onto a floppy disk. And then we can mass produce that floppy disk. We can make millions of copies of it, spread it all over the world so that millions of people can play my game. They can interact with my ideas. And because they are interacting, I achieve effectiveness. And because we are mass producing the disks, I achieve efficiency. That is the revolutionary nature of the computer. It allows us to automate interactivity, to achieve both effectiveness and efficiency. That was the most important part of my dream. And so, in 1983, I set about the long task of realizing that dream. Now, of course, any truly worthy dream cannot be realized in a year or 2 or 5. A truly good dream needs a lifetime to realize. But that didn't stop me from at least identifying the fundamental problems that had to be solved. And the very first problem that required my treatment, the biggest problem we face here is the lack of people in our games. Have you ever noticed computer games, all of our games are about things, not people. We shoot things. We chase things. Things shoot us. Things chase us. We manipulate things, maneuver things, allocate things, manage things, but it's always things, things, things. There are never any people in any of our games. No, sure, I've seen the pitiful excuses for characters in our games, and they're fakes. They are Potemkin villages. The characters in our games are like a cardboard box with a picture of a face pasted onto the front, but nothing inside. There's no heart and soul in them. All they have are a couple of buttons on front. You push one button, and he says,